It's time to doo-doo in my pants.
It's time to
Hello friends and welcome back to ReddX, your source for the freshest daily cringe content anywhere on the internet. Promise, swearsies, it's just a fact and it's totally science. Go ahead and look it up. Thanks in advance. I seen these icebergs floating around the internet, and then I said, oh, look, there's an icebeard berg yonder land ho or something like that. And I decided that I needed to throw my fedora into the ring. So we compiled an iceberg. It's not necessarily the most obscure things at the bottom. This is more like a progression from your average, everyday, innocent neckbeard into the worst type of incel that anybody can imagine deep down there at the bottom. So I hope that it will perform well. I hope that you guys will enjoy it. It should be a hell of a beefy video. If you weren't privy to it quite yet, I do make a lot of neckbeard content on this channel, mostly reading Reddit stories. I'd like to see, actually, how many sagas I can fit into this neckbeard iceberg. Sort of a side quest for me, but you guys will know to keep a lookout for it. And also, there are links in the description if that is the sort of thing that would interest you. So do check those out. So let's not waste any time, okay? We'll go ahead, we'll get some of them plugs and disclaimers out of the way like we do, and then we will dive right into some of this neckbeard iceberg cringe. I'd also like to mention that we were streaming this whole thing over on Twitch. People just watching me ramble, which is beautiful. Thank you guys so much for showing up, doing the thing. Let's go ahead and present the iceberg. As you can see here, we start out with kind of just fashion accessories, then we move on to lack of hygiene, and then in the third tier we get into the cultural stuff. Not necessarily harmful cultural things, but they are definitely on the beardier side. Then we get into the fourth tier. This is where things really start to devolve. And then the fifth tier is, I don't know if you can necessarily come back from that. I suppose it is possible, but the sixth tier, oh my god, that is where things get really locked down and I just hate it, but that is nothing compared to the seventh tier, which I'm not looking forward to covering. Please be gentle with me, Susan, okay? Don't demonetize this video. I worked really hard on it, okay?
This is a meme.
She's not making any promises, but that's fine. We gotta make it do what it do, so. The seventh tier is where things get really, really bad. I don't know if I want to talk about any of these things, but I don't know that I have much of a choice. Sometimes the neckbeard stuff, it gets real ugly, bro. And then the eighth and final tier is absolutely the worst of all, just completely hateable. It's essentially just incel murderers and things like that. Which, yes, lowest of the low, bottom of the bottom. If you continue down this path, you may eventually get there. Nobody wants to be there, so if you recognize yourself in any of the tiers on this iceberg, please go ahead, turn back now. So let's go ahead, we'll kick this thing off with the thing that is on the very tip of the iceberg. And what is at the tip of the iceberg but a fedora? Yes, indeed! That's probably the best joke in this whole video, so go ahead, pack it in. If you only came here for the jokes, then we're essentially done now. But yes, tier 1 is fashion. You might just be a normal guy, and maybe you think these things actually look good on you. Think probably being the most operative word in that sentence. Maybe you think that these things are a substitute for having a personality, which is something that we've seen many, many times before. I'm looking at you, anime fans. These things will not make you a neckbeard, but they will sure as hell make you look like one. You will be mistaken, at least in passing, as a neckbeard. And if that's what you're going for, then hey, great! But probably don't, if I have any say about it. And yes, it all begins with the fedora. Oh, that old chestnut that should have been discarded long ago. The fedora is the most iconic fashion accessory for any neckbeard. Usually the hat is misidentified, as the image the word elicits is most commonly a trilby. Not a lot of people know that, but the difference between a fedora and a trilby is the length of the brim.
That's quite big.
So if you're looking at a brim that's over 2 inches long, then you're probably looking at a fedora instead of a trilby. Although most neckbeards do wear the trilby, because, you know, all they're packing is 2 inches or less. Regardless of the nomenclature, though, this is indeed the most well-known neckbeard accessory. You might have seen the memes, tips fedora, things like this. Many people have questioned whether the chicken came before the egg, whether the meme came first or the neckbeards came first, but I'm pretty sure it was neckbeards wearing fedoras, thinking that they just looked so fly so often that the memes were spawned from that. The most sophisticated neckbeards of all actually have 2 fedoras, one for each head. Just pray that you never see the second one. Ugh. Dual-wielding fedoras. Next up, we have fingerless gloves. Oh lord, I am guilty of this one. I wonder if I could find that picture of me, 16, wearing fingerless gloves. They were fucking paintball gloves. So horrible. Yes, another relic that somehow survived the massive cocaine overdose that was the 1980s.
Cocaina.
Anybody remember that? I mean, I don't necessarily, but given how much cocaine there was, I feel like I sort of missed out on something. But now we can have a little slice of it all to ourselves. Thanks so much, fingerless gloves, even though they have been completely co-opted by neckbeards. You can't wear them anymore. I don't know what the purpose of wearing them in the first place was. It's like, yeah, my hands are really cold, but only the palm part. I still like to have the dexterity to eat Cheetos. Alright, you do you, bro. Fingerless gloves are often seen adorning the Cheeto-encrusted fingers of your average garden variety neckbeard. Coming back into popularity with the rise of Yu-Gi-Oh! And Naruto, fingerless gloves have become a cherished accessory of casual edgelords and neckbeards alike. They actually do have these mittens that fold back. You can take the end of the mitten off, but that doesn't really count as fingerless gloves because those serve an actual functional purpose, and I think most neckbeards are looking for something that serves no actual purpose, so they feel less lonely in the fact that they don't actually do anything for society ever. Just pretend it's a personality trait, which is something that I'm sure we will get to later on in the iceberg. Next up, we have anime accessories. Well, it might seem cool to have a Naruto-themed backpack or wear a Naruto headband. Oh, that brings to memory one of the sagas on this channel, Unfortunate and Naruto headbands. The OGs remember, but good lord, never wear a Naruto headband, okay? Not even once. It paints a picture of someone who is either a big fan or someone seeking attention through something other than having a personality. As we said, none of these things are substitutes for having a personality, but neckbeards don't seem to see it that way. These things can be worn by normal people as well, although a friend should probably tell them to save it for Comic-Con because it is definitely a trait that is closely associated with neckbeards. Now, I want to be very clear here, just because Naruto was the anime that we've chosen to illustrate this point doesn't mean that that's the only sort of anime accessories, anime paraphernalia that you'll need to be on the lookout for, okay? Everything from a Sailor Moon pencil case, another nod to Unfortunate and Naruto headband, all the way up to those furry tails that you sometimes see people wear.
I don't believe in violence. I don't believe in violence.
Some chicks wear them just because they think they're cute, but it really can attract some people that are involved with the furry fandom, which might be another thing that we get into later on down the iceberg. Sort of along the same lines as anime accessories, we have anime t-shirts, of course, for those that are lacking the testicular fortitude or the confidence to wear actual anime accessories. Fear not, because you could always just wear an anime t-shirt. I'm not exactly sure why that's something that you would choose to adorn yourself with, but hey, to each their own. It takes all types to make the world go around. You can tell people that you like something without having to deal with all that pesky social interaction. Although, do be warned that people who recognize the thing on your t-shirt might be apt to come up and start a conversation about it. Because of this, anime t-shirts are the perfect addition to any fledgling neckbeard's wardrobe, but of course it's not worn exclusively by them. You can indeed enjoy anime t-shirts and be normal. In fact, I wear a Dragon Ball t-shirt to the gym. Again, it has initiated some unwarranted interactions, but all in all, they weren't that bad. Neckbeards around this level are not bad people. As soon as they mention something from the 6th, 7th, 8th tier of this iceberg, that's the point where I need to get out.
That's it, I'm getting out of here.
But up until then, they are relatively harmless, in my opinion. By the way, if you are looking to initiate some unwarranted interaction, we've got a Teespring down in the description with all kinds of t-shirts. It's the beard on the inside. Did you bang a leg beard, bro? Lawfully stupid. You could also show off your hatitude with our hatitude t-shirt, just in case you want to pair it with a fedora. Fedora and a t-shirt, classic combo. You will attract neckbeards within at least 1 square mile of yourself. They will flock. They will follow your lead. You will be the Pied Piper of neckbeards. Incel Curities is our most recent one. We're also working on some seasonal shirts, so if you see something you like, I hope you go ahead and snap that up. Show some love for ReddX and what we doing out here. And with the plug out of the way, I guess back to your normally scheduled broadcasting. Next up, we have Hygiene hoodies. Oh, God. We are definitely getting deeper now. It is somewhat of a meme these days, however, and the Hygiene hoodie is often unironically worn by people who just find the concept humorous. Yes, quite unfortunate that this has reached the mainstream, but it is what it is at this point. Among some of those people will be neckbeards, however, and there is a certain humor in showing up to places with such garb, mostly just the shock value. You know full well that the person who calls you out for wearing this has seen some shit. Maybe of their own accord, and maybe not. Use your best judgment and approach with caution. This type of behavior, wearing this type of clothing, does unfortunately make you a moderate edgelord. When worn by a neckbeard, though, it is less of a joke and more a declaration of what they do in their private time. And you don't have to tell me about it, okay? I don't need to make the distinction of if you're an edgelord or a neckbeard. 90% of the time, I will steer clear completely. I do not want any part of this. It might be tier 1. It is personal opinion. That's why it's tier 1. But, like I said, just be very wary. We've also got other controversial clothing. Yeah, you know the clothing. You know what it is and what it's about. Some people just can't help themselves, and they have to post their worst opinions on their shirt or jacket. I guess so you know whose ass to kick if push comes to shove. Be it racist propaganda or just edgy memes, this is surely a sign of someone who is beginning to drift away from society. Be they edgelord or neckbeard, it's generally best to ignore it and possibly see if you could just get them put on a list. There is some controversial clothing out there that shifts back and forth, you know what I mean? Does that person wearing a Che Guevara shirt really know what it represents? When I was a fledgelord myself, a fledgling edgelord for the uninitiated, I used to have Mao Zedong on a fucking watch. Mickey Mouse. And that is part of this new generation that I don't necessarily get with their ironic veneration of tyrants. But like I said, it's best to approach with caution. There are also certain things that change their meaning. If you wore a Pepe the Frog shirt in 2016, you would be seen as an alt-right racist, and now it's kind of been taken back and people are welcoming Pepe back into the fold. So what do they think the shirt means? Like I say, just use your best judgment when possible. Sort of sticking with controversial clothing, we've also added trench coats onto the iceberg. Now, originally, trench coats were well made, amazing, waterproof wool that served a purpose to keep our troops dry on the front lines in those very, very early days of warfare. Unfortunately, it has been adopted by neckbeards as a bit of a statement, so they'll go down to their Target, buy the worst looking, cheapest, flimsiest $20 trench coat they could possibly find on the shelf, and throw it on with the fedora to convince themselves that somebody thinks they look cool. The trench coat saw a rise after the Columbine shooting. Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold supposedly participating in something called the Trench Coat Mafia, so nerds and goths all over the world sort of adopted that. It also got really hyped up with The Matrix, and now we can't seem to get rid of these horrible, cheap-ass trench coats that serve no functional purpose, much like the fingerless gloves. So the neckbeards, again, don't feel that they're alone in not contributing to society in any way. If you see somebody in an actual trench coat, a waterproof wool trench coat, I wouldn't necessarily steer clear of that guy, at least not for neckbeard reasons. I'd steer clear more because he's probably military and probably capable of kicking your ass. When I was in the Navy, they didn't give us a trench coat, all we got was a pea coat. But the same rules apply. No, I'm not salty about my extra 8 inches of fabric or whatever. Finally, the lowest part of Tier 1 on this iceberg are patchy, unkempt beards. The urge to grow masculine facial hair strikes many men as appealing. It was especially appealing in the 2010s for some reason. Now seems to have fallen out of fashion in large part, and I'm grateful for that, honestly. It makes it easier to spot the beards when not everybody has a beard, right? Neckbeards, though, can seemingly never quite pull this off. They seem to be almost incapable of ever growing a full beard. They're often just seen growing some poorly maintained stubble that resembles a poorly kept lawn. A lawn that is only mowed with a lawnmower that's suffering from terminal hiccups. Just the slightest bit of trimming can make your face and your beard look so much better. If you really insist on having it, at least groom your facial hair, fellas. It's not like rolling out of bed with short hair. Keep your bed head all day, nobody ever knows the difference. People will know if you are not grooming your beard, and it is definitely one of the biggest signifiers of a neckbeard. Hence, that's how they got their name. About now is where I drop in my sponsorship spot for Manscaped, but they haven't gotten back to me yet, so fuck it. Let's move on into Tier 2, I suppose. And Tier 2 involves hygiene. A most commonly known trait of the average garden variety neckbeard is indeed poor hygiene. While not completely exclusive to neckbeards, it is one of their most commonly attributed traits. And for good reason, honestly. Have you ever gone to a fighting game or an anime convention and seen the signs posted about that say, hey, you need to take a shower if you're going to be this close to other human beings? For some reason, that doesn't even cross their minds. There's some sort of mental disconnect where they've gone nose blind, and since they can't smell themselves, they assume that nobody else can. Honestly, it's a boon, if anything. You can smell the neckbeards coming and vacate as soon as possible. Yes, neckbeards are often described as foul-smelling beasts. The same could be said about a lot of people, but if you willfully neglect it, you're playing life on a much harder difficulty than most. To me, it seems really strange that somebody would purposely decide that they don't want to smell good. Don't you feel better if you smell better? Maybe they just haven't tried it before. Maybe that's just too much effort to put in. But we do know that it is a problem, and it consists of the second tier of this iceberg. So let's get into oral hygiene. Now, to be fair, oral hygiene is a pretty easy thing to fuck up on, right? A lot of people don't brush as often as they should, nor do they floss as much as they should. If you didn't know that, your dentist will be the one to tell you. Little slip-ups definitely happen here and there. That does not make you a neckbeard. But when the parting of your lips causes the smell of dental infection to surpass the limits of social distancing, you might want to assess your practices. Some might say that neckbeard teeth are worse than those of a meth addict, and some of those people might be absolutely right. Bad oral hygiene is one of those things that cuts me right to the core. I hate it more than anything else. You only get one set of teeth. Please take care of them. This is the first bit of truly visceral cringe on the iceberg, so I just want to point that out. But don't worry, there is going to be much more to come. So let's keep diving. Next up, we've got fear of showers. Now, showers are a thing that should be indulged in on a regular basis. To the neckbeard, though, a shower is like wolf's bane unto a werewolf. Be it rebellion against society or just general laziness, it is an unfortunate trait, to say the least, that works as an AoE debuff to anyone with a nose in a 20-foot radius. One could argue how often one should shower, but a good rule of thumb is this: if you can smell yourself, everyone else can absolutely smell you. At this point, a shower is highly recommended. Why would you not wash your ass? Some people do it multiple times a day. Some people say at least once a day. Myself, it's every other day. But if you are taking less than 2 showers a week, I would honestly take a good look at your life and ask yourself why that is. General laziness is no excuse for any of this. Do you know how fast you can take a shower? If you really hate it that bad, soap your hair up before you jump in there. You'll be done in 2 minutes. It's fine. You can make the time for it, and everybody else will thank you. I've heard a lot of neckbeards out there using like a hormonal imbalance or some other myriad reason for why they still smell after taking a shower. And the truth is, all I really want you to do is try. Give it a shot. Do your best. That's all I can ask. So instead of showering, do you know what a lot of neckbeards are seen doing? Well, it brings us to our next point, and that is Axe body spray. Now, body sprays are often used by those who fear the droplets of water coming from a shower. Yes, much like busy and poor college students use Febreze as a substitute for actually doing their laundry, neckbeards use Axe as a substitute for actual bathing. Neither of these things work. I did go through my Febreze phase a long time ago when I didn't have any money for the laundry machine because all of my money was spent working a minimum wage job and just giving it to my landlord. But the shower thing? Come on, man. How cheap is soap? How cheap is water? How many showers can you have with those things? Literally dozens for less than a couple of dollars. There's no excuse. I do see the laundry thing, though. But, much like the little Febreze life hack, all this is really only going to buy you 1 day at the very most. The smell of your vinegar armpits and ball sweat just can't be overshadowed by flammable smell spray for very long. Just because you went nose blind long ago doesn't mean that the rest of us have been so blessed. Now, I do know that our European friends call it Lynx. You might not even be using that specific brand of body spray. I'm more of an Old Spice man myself, but The body spray is meant for after the shower. It's meant as in accoutrement when you've washed all the smell off of yourself. Now I can smell like this nice thing. Instead, you just smell like an amalgamation of nice thing and ball sweat, which is not very nice. Slightly more tolerable does not mean tolerable. Please, stop it. You're not fooling anyone. Really, you're not even fooling yourself, if you're being completely honest. Stick your nose in your shirt and just take a big whiff of your shirt and let's play a little game, shall we? The game is called, is that axe or is that ass? And I'm pretty sure ass wins out every single goddamn time.
That smells like ass.
And yes, all this leads up to fungal infection. Oh, who hadn't been there before? Now, athlete's foot is really an inevitability to those who avoid hygiene. That corn chip smell you often find wafting by as your local Neckbeard walks by, or as you step into your local McDonald's. Yeah, that is a surefire sign that a dose of Lotrimin Ultra is needed stat. Other such issues occur from their poor hygiene, resulting in legbeards and neckbeards alike often smelling like the detritus-feeding organisms that possess their very crevices. Fungus is not a pleasant smell. You should be doing your best to get rid of an infection like that as soon as possible. But I've met more than my fair share of people who walk around, have just kind of accepted it as an inevitability. This is not the sort of thing that you should just lay down and accept. This is the sort of thing that you should be fighting tooth and nail, if you'll pardon the pun, because yes, both of those things probably infected by various funguses. There's simply no reason to let your quality of life decline over something that can be fixed with such a simple solution. Go to the doctor, tell them about your fungus. Surely they will give you something if the Lotrimin isn't working. I just don't understand this, dude, and it does tie into the general laziness that comes along with neckbearddom. Next up we have improper wiping. Oh, that's a heavy one. Oh, and a stinky one. Now, it is completely disgusting, obviously, to think that one could just walk around with a half-wiped ass. And yet, somehow, neckbeards can tend to just forget about proper wiping technique. We all know a neckbeard or two who smells like they are just constantly farting. And I regret to inform you that a fart is not what you are smelling. It's not an easy conversation to have with a complete stranger, but even then, it might be the smack in the face that they need to go and buy some wet wipes to make sure that their mud button is completely clean before they pull their disgusting pants back up. There's also this big to-do about bidets in the US. Since living in the Philippines, I have fallen in love with bidets, okay? I think this is really the solution. We just gotta make bidets like mainstream, you know? The way that I phrase this scenario most often is like, say you got dog shit on your hands, just dog shit all over your hands. Would you get a piece of paper and just wipe it off and that's good enough? Or would you go and clean your hand with some goddamn soap and water? All I'm saying is, think about it. Speaking of poopy fingers, we got fingertips next up. Yes, permanently stained fingertips are a huge giveaway regarding neckbeards. Even just eating one bag of flamin' hot Cheetos is enough to make your hands look as though you're suffering from liver failure. A constant diet of them will provide you with such stains upon your fingers that only a pumice stone or nitric acid will actually be able to rid you of said stains. It really makes you wonder what the fuck they're putting in garbage food like that. And beyond that, it makes you wonder what sort of person would knowingly put this into their body on a regular basis. How little can you possibly care about yourself and your hygiene? Going along with the fingertips thing, we've also got nicotine stains. Yes, a lot of neckbeards are nervous wrecks inside, so they tend to smoke a lot. Does it mask their smell? Sure, with something arguably fouler, I guess. But you can also see the nicotine stains. And again, not much is going to be able to get rid of it. Stained fingertips of any sort are a definite sign of a neckbeard. If you want to see an example of some stained spaghetti fingers, go ahead and look up the saga of Sir Sam on this channel. I would appreciate that. It's a beefy one. It'll keep you entertained. And if you like iceberg videos, then I'm sure you like beefy videos. The OGs have probably watched it, but if you're new to this channel, that is one of my first suggestions, I think. Finally, the lowest item in tier 2 of this iceberg is deodorant substitution, which we kind of covered with Axe, but it goes even deeper than that. Because neckbeards have odd beliefs when it comes to deodorant. From the aluminum containing chemicals in deodorant are totally dangerous, to the belief that a stronger smell from their armpits will somehow help them to attract a mate, the latter of which stems from theories about human pheromones, the veracity of which is dubious at best. I'm not here to make any scientific statements, but what I have seen in practice working a lot better than keeping your armpits nice and stinky is smelling like something nice, like soap. A little bit of Old Spice or Irish Spring. That will keep the ladies flocking if that's really your motivation. So yes, not wanting to deny their soulmate a whiff of their unholy pit stank, they might choose to believe in using crystals or powders instead of deodorants. And this results in an unmistakable stink that often has the opposite effect of what they expect, i.e., females running in the complete opposite direction. Though it should be noted here that some people are allergic to deodorant, and while proper substitutes do exist, that allergy alone might be enough to deter even normal people. So yes, we do make understanding for medical exceptions. That is why it doesn't take just one chunk of the iceberg before I go, yeah, that guy's definitely a neckbeard, right? We are putting 4, 5, 8 of these things together and then going, yeah, this guy is definitely headed down a very dark path. And though we haven't gotten to the darkest depths of the iceberg quite yet, I'm sure you will see later on in this video just how horrible things can get. It starts out pretty innocent. Haha, he wears a weird t-shirt. Haha, he smells stinky. And then it ends with people being excised from society, feeling like a pariah, and then they feel like they have to strike back. It is a dark, dark road to go down, and I see it every single day. Now, if you are somewhere in tier 2, it's relatively easy to pull yourself back out. Be more conscious of your hygiene. I still say wear what you feel you need to wear. As long as you're a normal person, I don't think people are going to judge you too hard for strange fashion choices. But once we get into tier 3, right now, that is where the turns start to table. Tier 3 is fandoms and influences. And now that you have properly ostracized yourself from normal society by ignoring the most basic components of the social contract, it's time to go and find your people. While fandoms can be a somewhat healthy thing to engage in, no fandom out there is free of its bad actors. Neckbeards, nice guys, and incels often find themselves in the position of bad actors. This is where you find yourself in an echo chamber. This is where the gravity of neckbeardery begins to grab hold of you and pull you down into the darkest depths. If you are involved in one of these things, I hope that you will take a good, hard, critical look at all of the people that you are associating yourself with and perhaps ask yourself why. What value are they actually adding to your life? And the first fandom that we have up to bat is My Little Pony. Yes, I know hashtag not all bronies, but definitely hashtag some bronies. And the fandom of My Little Pony has really always included at least some men, way back as far as the first iteration of this cartoon. And let's be clear, there's nothing wrong with liking ponies, okay? That being said, though, My Little Pony might have been one of the first major toxic fandoms to take the internet by storm. Yes, there is a reason that they are so infamous. The most modern generation of MLP was just an absolute breeding ground for the socially awkward and the bearded alike. It became a problem with conventions, where parents would take their children to see the thing that they liked, only to be met with the smell of unwashed beards. Oh, can I get a refund for this ticket? Imagine being completely unaware of the adult male fandom for your daughter's favorite cartoon, only to be met by their convention stank as you try to indulge your child in her favorite cartoon. One can only imagine the horror of those parents. A fat, fleshy, beardy wall blocking you out of the convention, reaching out perhaps to envelop your children, and the only thing that you can do is pick up those kids and run, fucking run, back to your hotel room. In later years, the conventions would be segregated to a degree, which removed this very concerning problem. But many beardy things erupted from the My Little Pony fandom, oh yes. Be it in erotic fan fiction, where a main character from the show molests her friends as a funny joke, or people placing figurines in jars for their own odd desires, which is definitely another thing that we will get to a bit later on down the iceberg. No, the entire thing has not been co-opted, but again, I will say use your best judgment and approach with caution. And yes, I mentioned the jar, trust me, we are not even into the pure octane nightmare fuel quite yet. So again, let's dive just a little bit deeper with Ben Shapiro. Oh boy. Ah yes, facts don't care about your feelings was a battle cry among internet edgelords for a very long time. Pseudo-intellectual neckbeards flocked to him as videos of Ben Shapiro dunking on first-year college students went viral. He was held as a paragon among neckbeards and incels alike for speaking out against gender issues and getting threatened with physical violence by Caitlyn Jenner on national television. And all of this fervor would only continue to rise him among the bearded until he wrote a book that proved that he may or may not be illiterate. Ghostwriters are a thing, you know. Now the beards have moved on to worshipping his sister, who apparently has massive honker-donkers, which is as good a reason as any as far as I'm concerned. And this new fixation has not really been well received by Mr. Shapiro, but horny neckbeards seem to not care about his feelings. You see how that all comes back around? Luckily, he has been relegated to the fringe of society, mostly overtaken by Jordan Peterson, and oh, look! Here he comes now! Jordan Peterson, the famous Canadian who lost his job as a college professor because he refused to use compelled pronouns, was also a beacon of comedy and purpose for the bearded. Dr. Peterson would later go on to become a huge public figure and internet daddy to these fatherless beards whose lives completely lack direction, telling them simple things that they could do to improve their lives and raking in buku bucks for it. Quite literally, he would tell them to clean their rooms or just take a shower. And though I dare say that this advice fell on deaf and quite cheesy ears, Dr. Peterson would remain a paragon of incel culture until he started abusing Xanax and sort of spiraling into mental illness because his wife got cancer. These days, he's still worshipped by some, but thankfully he has been mostly forgotten. I have taken my fair share of shots at Jordan Peterson, and there's always some sycophant in the comment jumping to his defense saying, "Oh, no, ReddX, you can't say that, you just don't understand." And instead of actually engaging in what they would like to call an open and honest debate, I simply relegate them to tier 3. Do better. There's plenty of advice givers out there that don't lean into body shaming and dehumanizing trans people, okay? Do better. I know that's gonna pull in some fucking comments. People are gonna be like, don't talk about Dr. Peterson! Alright, bro, fucking give me a break. What do you want from me, goddammit? I really have no segue between Jordan Peterson and our next topic, so I'll just come out and say it. Anime! Yes, anime fandoms. Anime has always been a real big beard puller, and also apparently a real big pud puller, but we're not talking about hentai specifically, we're talking about all anime. Naruto, Sailor Moon, Inuyasha, Avatar the Airbender, whatever you get into, the truth is the amount of anime fandoms are far too numerous to go into detail on. And really a cursory Google search for name an anime controversy will send you into a deluge of spine pulverizing cringe, the likes of which I could probably never properly deliver in a YouTube video, at least not with the paltry amount of time that I've been given on this planet. If you want to go and check it out, Google's right over there. But I really don't know why you would want to do that to yourself. I'm sure there's some people that are like, hey, ReddX, you have to like anime at least on some level, right? You cover neckbeards all the time. How can you not be into anime at all? And I mean, it is true. I do have a favorite anime, and that anime is Corey in the House. Oh, which links back to image boards, because I think that was a meme that started on an image board. And to those who are uninitiated, let me tell you here and now that beards love image boards. I'm sure there's also some normies shuffled in there, but overall, it is largely beard infested. The most popular and controversial image board is probably 4chan. And here, you can find many echo chambers of some of the most obscene and toxic thought processes ever put onto the internet. It's no small mystery that people who really like 4chan really like 4chan. Like, they get dragged into it. And while some can argue that it does have its good points, for example, I used to visit the VP board when I wanted to trade some Pokemon. I used to visit the music board when Mediafire downloads were all the rage. But there are definitely certain boards that you should avoid 100%. And to counterbalance those few good boards, yes, there are plenty of bad boards, bad points that it would take an entire documentary to sit here and describe. We might actually do that someday. Some of the internet-related controversies that we will discuss later stem from 4chan or 4chan-like websites, so we will just leave it at that, at least for now. Whether you like 4chan, whether you hate 4chan, whether you use image boards, it's probably not a topic that should be brought up amongst polite society. Those are the sort of inside thoughts that you need to keep to yourself. Please and thank you. And yes, now we are dragged into the Undertale fandom. Oh my god, right up there with Five Nights at Freddy's, or Poppy's Playtime, I guess it is, in 2022. But yes, Undertale is one of the easiest to point out fandoms that went downhill like way too fucking fast. More commonly associated with leg beards, it does also harbor a fair share of neck beards. Many who enjoyed what is arguably a great indie game were disenchanted with the fandom when the Beard Nation attacked. If you can separate the fandom from the game does stand well on its own. Does it deserve the vast amount of praise that I think it's gotten? Sure, why not? I think it's innovative, I think it's fun. Doesn't hold a candle to Stardew Valley. But there's definitely a type that I could see enjoying this, and indie games do deserve more love. It's just a shame that the love came out in the way that it did. So yeah, this fandom, which focuses on a game about a human child either committing genocide or freeing a land full of anthro monsters and skeletons, became a breeding ground for soul-crushing erotic fanfiction and disturbing art that honestly should be burned. We do have an Undertale Legbeard on the channel. I've linked that down in the description for you as well. A bit of reading material, if you should like. I wanted this game to be successful. I wanted it to take the world by storm, but not like this. Not like this. Even after the first few months that it came out, I had to completely separate myself from the Undertale fandom. Did I like the game? Yeah, I did. Once upon a time. But fandoms ruin absolutely everything that they touch. And next up, we've got one that maybe sort of applies to myself, VTubers. Although, admittedly, technically, I am a PNG tuber. VTubers were the answer to the Beard's most unholy urges. It was the manifestation of their waifus in real time. So all of this started out with Project Melody, and it quickly sprung into one of YouTube's biggest trends, cleaning out the wallets of every neckbeard in a billion-mile radius and giving them the parasocial love that they think they need. Neckbeards who love their 2D waifus are some of the most toxic fandoms on this fucking planet. Even canceling their beloved waifus if they find out that the real woman behind the cartoon has a boyfriend. Yes, it's happened. The many controversies of the YouTuber community and their rabid fandom are just far too many to describe. But I assure you that if you look into it, it is some of the most heinous shit out there. Again, we might cover that a little bit more on the channel. If that's something that you guys would like to see, do let me know. We haven't encountered a VTuber beard quite yet. Unless we're talking about, ReddX himself pulling out the VTuber model, which does happen from time to time on the live streams. But thankfully, basically everybody knows that I'm married, so I don't have to worry about being canceled, at least, not for that. But I might get canceled for my taste in music! Yeah, good segue! The next thing on the iceberg is indeed music. As I mentioned, I used to hang around the Mew board in 4chan, and I thought I was the coolest hipstery beard that there was. And no matter what your music taste is, the beards who become ravenous about their favorite music will never accept your opinion. It has been seen time and time again in neckbeard stories where some pseudo-intellectual beard professes why their taste in music is superior. Yeah, enough said. Whether you're a metalhead, a backpack rapper, a big brain classical boy, it doesn't really matter. Because the truth is that liking any type of music is 100% a cultural thing. If you travel to India, guess what? Their taste in music is vastly different than yours, and they probably think it's equally superior. So it's a non-issue, something really not worth arguing about, but that will not stop neckbeards from spending their lives doing so in order to inflate their own ego in honestly the most pathetic way possible. Speaking of pathetic ways to inflate your own ego, let's talk for a little bit about Doctor Who. Which series did you think was the best? And more importantly, who the hell cares? Oh my god, do neckbeards love their doctor? A show that's been running for about 70 years, featuring the titular character, Doctor Who, a time-traveling, sexually available man who uses his big brain meat to defeat all his nemeses without violence, is attractive to the neckbeards who consider themselves very smart, and are honestly probably incapable of doing violence to anyone aside from themselves. Then they made the Doctor a woman, and the neckbeards, well, they lost their minds. You see, the Doctor's played by a different actor every 2 to 4 years, and when they decided to make the Doctor a woman, outrage echoed across the internet. Some have alleged that death threats were sent to the showrunners and actors alike, highlighting just how dangerous a cavalcade of beards truly is. And this is not the only show that it has happened for. I mean, I'm sure this was a bigger to-do because it's based on gender, but I've also heard about the actress Anna Gunn, you know, Skylar White from Breaking Bad, getting death threats about her character, which I guess just proves how quality the writing and acting on that show actually is. But to take it to this extent, just why? Do you always live in imagination land? I take that question back immediately because the answer to that is yes. Yes, of course they do. How could they live with themselves anywhere else aside from in their own head? Sad, bro. We got Yu-Gi-Oh! Hey! A show featuring a card game that can send you to hell. Well, Beards instantly fell in love with that. It was an anime, it featured a card game, and the card game was mostly played by children. Nothing fuels an unhealthy superiority complex like stomping children at a Yu-Gi-Oh! Tournament. You know how many kindergartners I could beat up? I'm the strongest man in the world. Interestingly enough, the neckbeard problem was so bad that rules about personal hygiene had to be added to the official Yu-Gi-Oh! Rulebook. It's true, just a fact, go look it up. If that doesn't spell beard infestation for you, I truly do not know what does. It's time to doo-doo in my pants.
It's time to
Yeah, that's about the sum of it, isn't it? Closely related to Yu-Gi-Oh! We've also got Magic the Gathering, of course. Possibly the least toxic fandom among neckbeards. MTG is an old beard staple. Much like Dungeons and Dragons, it is a power fantasy, where you and your beardy opponent face off while LARPing as powerful wizards. Unlike Yu-Gi-Oh! Though, they don't have any rules about personal hygiene, which often results in the experience of playing not unlike being subjected to tear gas. It has had a long history of sociopathic cheaters who went on to win a lot of money by being completely scum-fucking human beings. Again, if that doesn't spell beard infestation, then what the hell exactly is your criteria? I've even heard tell of neckbeards purposely not showering before an MTG tournament in order to throw their opponent off. They will spend literally weeks cultivating a level 5 poison aura in order to win what probably amounts to a fairly paltry sum of money. And I bring you back to the very first sentence that I said about MTG, one of the least toxic fandoms. Just sit back, consider that for a moment. Really makes you think about your life, doesn't it? Comic books. Yes, possibly being one of the oldest beard fixations, comic books have been upheld by the bearded for, well, longer than I've fucking been alive. While the collecting of comic books can be a healthy and profitable hobby, those who dive too deep into the world of comic books can find themselves developing weird views on the world. I don't think I need to remind everyone how much incels love the fucking Joker. Pair that with the more recent Comic Gate controversy, in which many people fight against a push for inclusion in comics, and it's not hard to see how this can just become a toxic waste dump, strong enough to kill even the Hulk. Speaking of which, hey, there is actually a Hulk beard, which you should definitely go and check out. Again, link in the description. And yes, the Comic Gate controversy still ongoing as of the making of this video. I do see this pop up from time to time, and whichever person or page is touting this sort of stuff from either side, I just don't want to talk about comic books with you. I will unfollow. He's not into comics, he's not into anime. What could he possibly be into? Well, now we are finally getting to that, and that is video gaming. Oh, y'all like video gaming, right? Is there anything more synonymous with beards than video games? It's a match made in heaven. You can live out your power trip fantasy, be a complete sociopath, troll other people online. Yep, video games was the best thing to ever happen to beards. They get to stay away from sunlight, and they stay inside, far away from us. There is the Gamergate controversy too, but I guess we'll get into that a little bit later. And I will say there's nothing wrong with a power trip fantasy, but I don't sign off on being a complete sociopath unless it's in a single player game. Go ahead, have your fill in Grand Theft Auto. When it comes to trolling other people online, that is where I draw the hardest line. Now you are affecting somebody else's experience for no reason other than to simulate some semblance of joy in your life. That is the truest of beard traits as far as video gaming goes. I support counter-trolling, but trolling, no, I can't sign off on that one. And now the lowest part of the third tier is Dungeons and Dragons. Oh yes, the classic. It's sort of gone more mainstream these days. Really, this can apply to a whole lot of board games. I thought about replacing Dungeons and Dragons with Fatal, but I don't think Fatal has caught on quite yet, at least outside of more beardy communities. We do have a very secret Facebook episode of a group playing Fatal. It was posted over in RPG Horror Stores. Wasn't safe for YouTube, so yes, it is on my Facebook page. Go ahead, check that out. Link in the description. I appreciate you. So, you might have noticed a theme in this tier of the iceberg, and it is the theme of power fantasy. If you have half an imagination, D&D can be like video games on super crack. It's a tabletop RPG where characters roll math rocks in an attempt to seduce bar maidens or dragons, if that's more your thing, and they can live out all their murder hobo fantasies. Maybe you've heard a few RPG horror stories. If you have, it probably featured a Neckbeard. If you haven't, there's plenty on our channel. I leave even more selections for you in the description. Wow, we are really cramming these plugs in here. If you're interested in more tabletop RPG stuff, might I suggest to you the Adelaide Saga, which is absolutely amazing. It features the adventures of my good IRL buddy Ramtide and his admittedly pretty sadistic sister. And I do feel that I must point out, Dungeons and Dragons does not have to be an inherently beardy thing. If you're making it weirdly sexual for the people around you and they're uncomfortable, you aren't picking up on that, then you have become that guy. You are probably a neckbeard and you will not be invited back once this play session ends. The power fantasy can be a wonderful addition to people's lives, at least people that can handle it responsibly, which when it comes to neckbeards and that guys, they definitely cannot handle it responsibly. We 100% need to wind that back in any way possible, which is why I think there needs to be the great divide. All the neckbeards go and play Fatal with each other, all the normies can have Dungeons and Dragons. That's fine. It'll never happen, but it's my only solution to a very difficult problem. But now we are into tier 4, yes, the behavior and psychology. Deeper and deeper we dive. This is where things start to get really dark, so go ahead, buckle your seatbelts if you need to. Alright, I swear, last plug for this stint of the video, but Guitar Beard is where the phrase "buckle your seatbelts" came from. Big tip of my hat, not a fedora, to user Ethan Ralph is Fat for not only writing the Guitar Beard saga, which is one of the top 5 performing sagas on this channel, but he also helped me to compile this iceberg. Reed did most of the legwork. So thank you to him so much for making all of this possible. And let's make it do what it do. Okay, any casual observer of neckbeards will probably notice that there is something a little bit off about them, even if you can't quite put your finger on it. And this usually stems from some sort of hole in their heart or a disease of the mind, metaphorically speaking. All of this can often be related to childhood trauma, and it is something that needs to be kept in mind when it comes to neckbeards. They are not all irredeemable, but some of them absolutely are. And it's not always our call to make. I definitely have my own set of opinions. Yours might differ, and I welcome that 100%. Having any of these traits does not instantly make you a neckbeard, but it does make you very susceptible of devolving into one. Self-care is the most important care that you can give. If you want to avoid falling into these deepest of waters, then please seek some help. It is not weakness to reach out, ask for a hand, and let people know that you are sinking. All of this, perhaps quite ironic, coming from myself, but yes, even creating these YouTube videos has become a sort of therapy for myself, as long as I remember not to read the comments. Anyways, first up we have depression. Now, depression is a common mental illness all over the world. It can drain the color from your world, and it can make you insecure and anxious. It can cause a wide range of effects on your physical well-being and your behavior. Perhaps it could also be linked to the said lack of hygiene that we discussed in tier 2. Left untreated, depression can fester into much worse things. For example, the lack of bathing among the bearded could be attributed to depression. Such grooming often falls by the wayside when one's depressed, but it's never too late to improve. But for all the bearded who believe that they're above such a label, it makes it only that much harder for them to ever get out of this trap. Seeking help is not a sign of weakness, and I think that neckbeards are more susceptible to this than legbeards because of toxic masculinity. You're a man, just figure it out, tough it out. Luckily, society has progressed to a point where we sort of accept that, okay, many people do deal with depression. But knowing that you have depression is one thing, reaching out and getting the help that you need to deal with it is another thing entirely. So please, if you do need help, I will leave some links and phone numbers in the description that you can use to reach out anonymously if you need to. But do please reach out if you feel the need to. Antisocial personality disorders. Well, this refers to a group of disorders including narcissistic, histrionic, and borderline personality disorders. Sometimes improperly called sociopaths, these disorders can often result in behavior that is attention-seeking or presents with an inflated sense of self-worth. These disorders are complicated, and they take years of therapy in order to even make a dent in them. We have all heard stories about neckbeards behaving like absolute maniacs and portraying many of these disorders. They can most easily be summarized as a need for validation, be it through positive or negative attention. Though I do suppose that is a woefully reductive explanation. These disorders often manifest early, and they go undiagnosed or ignored long enough for it to become a major problem later on in life. when the seeds of beardery can grow in the soil of disorder. Now, I have seen antisocial neckbeards and legbeards, but we need to be careful to not paint the fence with too broad a brush, as it were. I can definitely appreciate a need for positive or negative attention. I mean, I run a YouTube channel, for God's sake. Does that make me antisocial in some way? Perhaps there's just a dash. But I don't think we need to crack out the DSM and be like, okay, well, what can we do to fix this? If you believe that you or somebody you know is having a problem with something like this, please talk to a mental health professional, because that is not what I'm here to do. I'm here to make you aware of it. I'm not here to diagnose anybody. We've also got main character disorder. Oh my goodness. That, guys, we talked about them before, and yes, this is a thing that mostly manifests in games such as Dungeons and Dragons, and it is just a complete disregard for the wishes or the fun of others around you. I also mentioned this in the video gaming section, where you're trolling people for no reason. When this is manifested in real life, you get the kind of people who refer to other human beings as NPCs or peasants. It's just all about them, and they will do anything to make you know that you are just a side character in the main quest that is their life. I have only seen this disorder become worse and worse as time goes on. With the rise of social media, we see people doing the dumbest type of shit on TikTok, all for just a smidgen of internet clout. Putting the feelings and enjoyment of everybody else aside because you want to get a few extra likes on that video. And it's a disgusting thing. And TikTok is not the genesis of it. We've seen it with YouTube prank channels way back in the day. We could probably find even more examples the further we look back. But the truth is that yes, at this point, essentially everybody believes that they're the main character. And it is infuriating. Closely tied in with that main character disorder, we have, of course, entitlement. Oh, similar to the last 2 points, this is indeed something that's commonly seen in beards and in Karens. It is the belief that they are owed something by the virtue of their own being. This can manifest in social situations such as stealing from close acquaintances, or in romantic ones, such as treating your partner as an object or property. The former being more closely related to Karens, the latter being more closely related to neckbeards. But yes, this can also manifest in the form of sexual violence. We've seen more than one neckbeard believing that they are entitled to another person's body. See Wheezybeard, see Bootbeard. We've got myriad examples on this channel, and it always breaks my heart. While we don't cover Karens very often on this channel, that is another weird thing that I'd like to delve into eventually. The Karen Iceberg. Would anybody be interested in that? It's probably just a bunch of MLM Huns at the top and people who drown their kids at the bottom. Casey Anthony at the bottom. Jesus Christ. Anyways, we also have the I am very smart.
I am too smart. SMRT.
Pseudo-intellectual neckbeards who like to quote Nietzsche often fall into this category. Neckbeards often espouse their many perceived good qualities, but a very common one among those assertions is high intelligence. This often results in the type of beard that will argue with you, even if they know for a fact that they are wrong. If you've ever wondered where the, actually meme came from, it is from this type of beard, right here. We actually covered r/I am very smart recently. It was a lovely devolution, and ironically, I felt my brain cells committing suicide the more and more I read on into it. I think Elroy from the Star Wars Shenanigans saga fits in nicely here. Just inventing rules, both for the tabletop role-playing game and also for Russia being in the UN. Even when he was shown the Wikipedia page, he's like, yeah, they didn't update it. Bro, you have to know that you're wrong, right? Probably not, because mommy told him that he's always right. We're still working on the theory that Karens spawn neckbeards, but neckbeards can be spawned from a lot of things, honestly, as we are seeing in this iceberg. So following that up, we've got inappropriate social behavior. Yeah, beards are just kind of built different, and not in the good way. Some of the things that most people would find absolutely unacceptable, beards just don't, for some reason. This can be seen in many different beards, in many different ways, such as rapid-firing 1,200 text messages to someone who left them on red, or inappropriate contact with an unwilling party. Even winding it all the way back to the second tier once more. Yes, we have seen that neckbeards openly violate the social contract for whatever reason. But this inappropriate social behavior we're talking about is far worse than just that. They are involving other people in these delusions. So, obsessing over a single individual for periods of time that exceed the fucking heat death of the universe. These beards are not inherently beardy, and they can be associated with underlying issues. It's not really a pure identifier of beardery. You combine this with some of these other traits, though, and Jesus, you might have a giga, mega, double plus supersized beard on your hands. I recently poked my head into the r/obsessive love subreddit. Incels call this type of thing one-itis. So yes, while this by itself isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world, it is generally found with myriad other points on this iceberg. We got the racist and sexist rhetoric. Oh boy. A lot of who we are, we learn from those that we grew up around. This goes back to the possibility of childhood trauma influencing a beard's development. Often, these influences bleed into a child's personality and manifest a bit later on down the road. In some cases, this is what happens with beards. Racist or sexist family values are carried with them like a totem, and due to some other traits, they refuse to learn or change or even try to learn or change this terrible behavior. And this behavior can be learned from fandoms and image boards. Honestly, it's hard to say which one is more common, but casual sexism and racism has been a staple of neckbeard stories for as long as they've been around, honestly. We've seen it more times than I care to count. You can honestly spin a wheel, pick basically any story from this channel, and either of those themes will be brought up at some point, and they never fail to make me uncomfortable. But again, this goes along with defying the social contract, either out of ignorance or out of malice. Nobody understands me. Well, neckbeards always have a way of becoming the victim, making themselves the victim. Unlike Karens, who are really only the victims of their own actions, neckbeards often have a self-imposed victim complex. This is sometimes a real thing that they feel deep down and are having legitimate trouble dealing with. But sometimes it is completely disingenuous and is only being used to garner sympathy. The typical, "Oh, woe is me," is what typically comes to mind, and it is something that once again we have seen time and time again. But it is not something that we need to relentlessly give into time and time again. At a certain point, the cycle needs to be broken. Usually, a swift reality check of some sort will be enough to rip some of the less entrenched beards out of their cycle of self-hatred. But depending how deep on the ice beard we go, that prospect seems to become more and more difficult. Even if they hear it from every direction, from everybody in their lives, yeah, it seems like everybody else inevitably is the problem. So all of that brings us down into Tier 5, Intrusive and Delusional Beliefs. To be quite honest, if you have reached this level of neckbeardery, you are very likely deep into nice guy territory, almost bordering on incel territory. But it's not too late for you. However, I highly encourage you to pull out of that fucking tailspin, buddy, as soon as possible. These are all things that often play off of everything that we've already discussed, and they are used by the beard/nice guy to cope with the reality around them. Yes, they love their copium, as we shall shortly see. Mysticism. Well, mysticism is an interesting thing among beards. It's not uncommon for us to hear about people claiming to have supernatural powers, or being able to curse you, or worshipping some edgy god from the Necronomicon. Whether or not these beliefs are real or just some sort of elaborate LARP is up to interpretation, but it is hard to deny that these beards do seem to be drawn into it. I imagine that all of this comes from a desire for more control beyond what they actually have in their own lives, which of course might say more about what's going on inside than it does outside. And we have seen no shortage of this on the channel either. We've got Wolfbeard, of course, the most famous of neckbeards, Miss Piggy, his girlfriend who buys into that delusion. We've also got a Wiccan Legbeard somewhere lurking on this channel. You can take your pick for what interests you most, but it is confirmed that mysticism is deeply entrenched into what beards want for themselves. Somewhat closely related to mysticism while also being the absolute opposite is atheism. Yes, atheism, again, seems to be something that neckbeards hold on very tight to in order to give themselves at least the illusion of control over their lives, which are quite clearly spiraling out of control. So yes, the other side of the coin with mysticism is atheism. It's probably a manifestation, again, of desire for control. With no God, there's no higher power that one must answer to, therefore morality becomes a human construct. Blah, 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 blah. It's very common among the neckbeards for them to take a hardline stance against the existence of God. I've often heard this hypothesized to just be teenage rebellion against religious parents, and that does make a lot of sense. But then I just wondered why it's so common with adult neckbeards. Maybe because it triggers the greatest amount of people at once? I'm not sure. Maybe it's because you can argue whether or not a god exists for days and you just really like the sound of your own voice for some reason. I don't know. Who can say? Now, of course, all this is not to say that neckbeards are either staunch believers in mysticism or staunch believers in atheism. For example, we had Iowa Beard, who truly believed that he was Jesus Christ reincarnated. Another video that is shared on this very channel, and it is a fascinating watch, to say the very least. I think that that is indeed yet another grab for control of a life that is spiraling out of control. And that also, again, falls closely in line with the next point on the iceberg, which is MGTOW, which, if you didn't know, stands for men going their own way. And yeah, it is an odd movement, to say the least, that seems to imply that men should move in a direction that benefits them, and it should be bereft of women, or that women should follow. I see both positions put forward from time to time. At its very core, though, it seems to be some sort of fake-it-till-you-make-it LARP that gets you to Sigma male status. And we'll get into that later, though. It's a movement that is pretty closely tied with the incel movement, so just based on that, you already know that it's probably not great. I am all for men self-improving, but do you need to disparage the opposite gender in order to do so? My argument would be that you don't. We can go ahead and lump radical feminism into here as well. That is definitely on the path to legbeardery, but again, this is a neckbeard iceberg, not a legbeard iceberg. Essentially, the two are fairly synonymous, however. Chads and Stacys! Oh god, here we go. Chads and Stacys is an image-based meme that was taken very seriously by beards, incels, and nice guys, the unholy trifecta. For the uninitiated, this is a concept that implies that women only go after Chads, the women being the Stacys. It also implies that Chads are usually vapid douches who will leave said Stacys at the very first chance, and instead of ending up with a nice guy, they will then rebound onto another Chad. This sort of circular thinking is indeed a self-fulfilling prophecy, and you will only succeed in distancing yourself from others if you willingly carry this belief for some reasons. I have heard it used ironically, but among certain circles it is taken 100% serious, and I cannot for the life of me imagine why. You have the power to choose your own beliefs, so why this? Incels tend to call this the cock carousel, but we might get into that in the Incel Iceberg, which, I don't know. If these icebergs start popping off, I'll make some more. That'll be fine. We'll just have to see how it goes. Related to that Chad's and Stacy's bit is we live in a society popularized by the Batman villain, the Joker, who we mentioned much earlier on in the iceberg. This meme was instantly adopted by the Incel, Neckbeard, and Nice Guy communities as it seemed to speak to them on some level. The concept that they're not fucked up, it's just society that's messed up. Oh, that is big brain time. Why should I need to improve myself if society's the one that's screwed up? Why should I apply myself in improving society if it's so big that it's impossible? Again, we're dealing with that type of cyclical thinking that traps people deep under this iceberg. While many issues can be linked to society, such as systemic racism, it doesn't really apply the way that they seem to think that it does. It's recently fallen out of popularity because we live in a society has become an easy target with which to ridicule the Incel, Neckbeard, and Nice Guy community. You have probably seen a "we live in a society" meme yourself, whether used ironically or unironically. But yes, it has been used as a tool to beat society over the head, so guess what society did? They ripped that tool out of the hands of the incels, and they turned it right around and started beating them with it. It's a really interesting dance to watch, honestly. Speaking of incels, one of their most touted opinions is the next point on the iceberg, and that is government-provided girlfriends. Yes, I am serious. This is a gag on the iceberg. It refers to a post on the Incel Wiki in which several users implied that they should be given girlfriends by the government. Now, even glancing over the inherently disgusting implications of that political stance, if you can even call it that, it still sounds incredibly stupid. How would a system like that even work? Think, incels! Think! This is going to lead to a large influx of human trafficking or something far worse than a bunch of basement virgins never getting laid. Maybe Vermin Supreme was onto something. Which, if you didn't know, Vermin Supreme is a political candidate who ran on a platform of government-mandated ponies. Free ponies for everyone! And if you're into My Little Pony, I mean really getting into My Little Pony, then there's your girlfriend right there. It's just a joke. Please never do that to a pony. Maybe that joke's too far. Continuing on down the Neckberg, we have race realism. Now, this concept is an offshoot of most racist nonsense that a lot of pseudo-intellectual beards like to dive into. The concept is probably something that you're pretty familiar with, considering how long it's been around. It is only within the last 60 or 70 years that we've even tried to get rid of it. With that in mind, maybe you have heard something along the lines of African Americans have more fast twitch muscle fiber than white Americans, or an extra bone in their leg, or something ridiculous like that. This is something pointed to as a race realism fact, a hate fact, if you will, which implies that the races are inherently and genetically different. While race can play some component in physiology, this is often taken a step further and used to imply that some races are smarter or better at certain types of labor, and even taken further into eugenics territory. Now, I'm not here to tell anyone what to think, but I do believe that this is the kind of idea that should get you put on a fucking list. I am absolutely shocked that this has continued on to this day, especially within the incel and nice guy communities. They are literally out here doing phrenology, saying I can't get a girlfriend because I'm South Indian and my head is too large. I can't get behind any of this. You are sabotaging yourself before you've even gotten started. If you're carrying beliefs like this around with you, I urge you to take a good hard look at your life. Oh, but without my phrenology textbooks, how will I ever ascend from being a beta to an alpha? How will I ever get on my sigma grind set? Oh yes, the smegma grind set, as we call it in these neck of the woods. The dick neck of the woods. That brings us to our next point on the iceberg, and that is the alpha, beta, sigma beliefs. And oh man, how near the top of the iceberg this could be if we were going by popularity. But really, this is a beardy belief, a very, very beardy belief. Now, all of us have had a friend or two that buys into the alpha and beta male psychology. The concept is actually more complex than most of the other concepts on this list, but to simplify it for you, it all started with the alpha and beta male dichotomy. Alpha males get all the girls and is just essentially another name for chads, although incel, neckbeards, and nice guys would consider being a chad a bad thing. They love to profess their alpha status. Really some ass-backwards doublethink if you give it even the slightest amount of thought, but luckily, they never do. Beta refers to a subservient or submissive personality in males. If you've ever seen the incel versus chad memes, virgin versus chad memes, whatever these kids are calling them nowadays, then you know all about it. The beta is the one with bad posture. He's unattractive, just a maidenless drag of society. Many incels identify with this personality type and claim it to be akin to a genetic or personality disorder, and to some regard it might actually be the latter. But fear not, my intrepid incel, for there is a third option that we had not considered until the most recent years, and yes, the Sigma male is a newer concept created by alleged far-right activist Theodore Robert Beale. The Sigma male, in its most reductive form, is essentially an alpha male who has no interest in power or women or society. They're all about getting that bag, and I don't mean that ball bag, although that might be part of it too. If you thought of the Joker when you heard that description, please go out, seek some help. The Sigma male is a paragon to the LARPing incels who see their social isolation as something that makes them a Sigma male, sometimes referred to as a lone wolf. Who needs social validation when you can just LARP as a self-sufficient Sigma Giga-Chad? Yes, of course! This is what we call the path of least resistance. Why even think about self-improvement when you can just slap another label on yourself? In reality, Sigma males don't exist, and the alpha and beta male dichotomy has also been hotly contested among sociologists who find any studies into the topic dubious, if not outright invalid. The alpha and beta male thought process spawned from watching packs of wolves, and actually the person who put out this scientific research paper has since rescinded their views and stated that they no longer believe that to be the case. But unfortunately, it has already taken hold within society. And of course, all of this leads us right up into tier 6, the terminally online tier. If you have delved this deep into nice guy territory, you are quickly reaching your apotheosis into a full-blown incel, truly ostracized from most polite society by your odd, controversial beliefs and assertions. You are forced to find a small echo chamber online that will tolerate your endless shitposting. Honestly, I identify with this one on some level. I am terminally online, but the echo chamber that I've chosen is YouTube, which I guess isn't really that echoey of a chamber, since I welcome dissent. Some people out there might disagree with what's on this iceberg, and good! Put that in the comments. Tell me so I can point to your comment and say, see? It's not an echo chamber, see? So let's get into 4chan. Now, I've admitted to using this a few times, a few of the boards at the very least. And yeah, we're going to be talking about this site a lot as we delve through these last 3 layers. In and of itself, it's really not as heinous as some people might say. There are boards focusing on people losing their minds over their cryptocurrency sliding directly into a dumpster fire that can honestly be an infinite source of entertainment. And many popular memes have been born from this site that is often painted in broad letters that spell degeneracy. Specific boards, though, will often be a lot worse than others. 2 that come to mind here are Poll, a board that focuses on being as politically incorrect as possible without having your door kicked in by the feds, at least not yet. Another board of extreme interest is R9K, which, as I understand it, is full of supreme gentlemen who LARP as robots from the year 9000. What the fuck is going on here? I have no idea, nor would I want to go and ingratiate myself long enough to find out. Yes, R9K has been linked to many incel or racially motivated killers that we will see in Tier 8. Overall, the anonymity of 4chan has been decried as a mask that allows the worst of society to fester, and studies have proven this to be somewhat factual. While there's nothing wrong with a little bit of friendly shitposting, 4chan can often be the septic tank in which all of that shitposting is collected. And it really only takes one susceptible bad egg to blow the top off that septic tank and spew pure toxicity out into the world. And unfortunately, it seems like the snowball has only gotten bigger. Every time you see a 4chan killer out here, it spreads the idea to other disassociating people that, oh, maybe they should go to 4chan to disassociate. Associate with other disassociate? I don't know what's going on here. And then 4chan grows bigger and bigger, radicalizes more and more people, and so we get more and more bad eggs. It is an ugly thing that we can't necessarily act on, at least not quite yet. And while, yes, I've admitted to visiting it a time or two, there are certain parts of that site that need to be purged from existence. Especially these days. Old 4chan, that was a vibe. 4chan these days, goddamn, it is a different monster. Anyways, r/brain cell is next on the iceberg. Incel subreddits have often been met with extreme force by the admins of Reddit, and this is not without good reason, however, as often homophobic, sexist, racist, and transphobic memes populate the posts upon such subreddits. Some of them are all those things at the same time. It was not uncommon to see wishes of death upon attractive female influencers in such subreddits, only for the reason that they were attractive and female, and not giving these incels any attention. When the r/incel board was banned by the admin gods, mercifully, the incels put together all 4 of their collective brain cells and created the Brain Cell subreddit. Hey! This, of course, was a not so clever attempt to pull the wool over the eyes of the all-seeing Reddit admins. And this subreddit followed the same general structure of most incel subreddits until its official removal from Reddit. Yeah, who saw that one coming, right? Archives do still exist of it, where one can dive into the sordid and sickening thought processes of incels and unrepentant nice guys. Rest in piss, r/braincell. I have to be glad that this one was removed. It was a bit before my time doing these deep dives into the underbelly of the nerd community. But yes, thank God archives of it exist, so my faith in humanity can slip ever further away. Next up, we've got closely related to incel everything. Yes, cum tributes. Oh God, I hate it.
Thomas Jefferson 76s.
A common theme amongst incel, neckbeards, and nice guys is a fixation on using bodily fluids in a rather odd fashion. Cum tributes refers to the act of applying said bodily fluids to a digital image or picture of a person that they find attractive. This behavior is an oddly disgusting one that is often interpreted as a form of flattery, or more accurately, degradation to the target. So popular has it become that it is a search term that auto-populates on many popular porn websites. Personally, I believe that this should be considered a form of harassment, but apparently the law has not caught up with the ever-evolving clusterfuck that is the incel mind. And if you don't believe that this is harassment, please don't at me, because you are objectively wrong. Imagine being a popular influencer, logging in to your DMs every day and seeing just random dudes coming all over pictures of you. That can't be good for your mental health.
No! Wait, hang on. I gotta post this on Facebook.
No! For either party, but especially for that poor woman. Or dude, I guess dudes can receive tributes. Please don't ever do this with ReddX, alright? I disavow all mentions of ReddX cum tributes. It's probably gonna happen eventually, and I will probably delete the whole channel when it does. Closely related to said cum tributes is unsolicited dick pics. So there you are, terminally online and very lonely. Well, don't feel too bad, because here I am as well. So you go out and you create a dating profile on like a dating site or Tinder or something like that. That's where you lost me. I ain't gonna follow you there. You're desperate, but you've been detached from normal society for so long that you don't really have the verbal acuity to hold a potential match's attention. Quite unfortunate. Coom-brained, as they call it. Whatever can you, the heroic Sigma male incel, do? Obviously, the only answer here is to fire off a picture of your dick. Works 60% of the time, every time. Yes, unsolicited cock pics have become the bane of women everywhere. Consider it like the incel version of going out on the street in a trench coat and you're naked under it and you're just flashing everybody. Yeah, that is the general vibe that this has. They just do it online now. The mentality of this is extremely odd to me and deeply concerning, as it implies that even these dick pic flickers seem to only view themselves as an object for their milady sexual urges. And the truth is, they probably ain't even great for that purpose. Despite its heinous nature, I mean, these have resulted in some of the funniest murdered by words posts I have ever seen. So stay classy out there, you greasy weirdos. I feel sorry for the women that receive it, but hopefully you can strike a critical blow to the ego of these freaks. Perhaps even enough to be fatal is what I hope for. Fingers crossed. Stalking. Oh boy, that's a classic, isn't it? Pretty sure this one's been happening since the dawn of time. And yes, this refers to both in real life and online stalking. Incels, neckbeards, and nice guys often feel entitled to the information and whereabouts of those that they find appealing, and thus they often resort to stalking if they are rebuked. This can be done through internet accounts, such as on Twitter or Facebook, or it can manifest in real life, such as hiding in the bushes, jerking off your little button mushroom penis. A common form of cyberstalking is doxing. Many are the stories of jilted incels who feel the need to post others' private information as some sort of sick threat to their victim. It is as though these monsters cannot possibly comprehend the concept of privacy or personal space, and then they wonder why they're fucking forever alone. If you ever find yourself being harassed or stalked by an incel, check your state or county cyberstalking laws and press charges as soon as possible. Start that fucking paper trail and do not let them go on to do this to more people. Even as safe as you think you're being online, some of these people are legitimately psychotic. Some of these people will take it to extremes that you've never even thought of before. Remember the story of a Japanese pop idol that posted a selfie on social media and a fan found out like where she lived by looking at the reflection in her eye and determining where that was located? Yes, there are a lot of weirdos out there on the internet. And yes, you need to take steps to keep yourself safe. You can't stop absolutely everybody, but the police can absolutely help if they insist on pushing the envelope. Hey, how about those 10,000-year-old dragon lollies?
I'm going to jail!
Yeah, you've seen the memes, I'm sure. And it's no mystery that the sexual interests of incels and nice guys can skew into the, strange. The very strange. Japanese manga of an illicit nature featuring many oddities that might appeal to your run-of-the-mill incel, neckbeard, or nice guy, and one such thing is lolicon. I don't know if we can actually say that on YouTube. This is an attraction to cartoon juveniles. As of the writing of this iceberg, it is still federally not illegal to indulge in these artistic displays of such behavior. Despite its lack of illegality, many of these monsters enjoy the 10,000-year-old dragon lolly cope. This consists of fetishizing a character that is child-esque, but not underage, because they're some sort of 10,000-year-old eldritch being or something like that. Thus, divorcing the age of the character from the depiction of them and creating a non-problem. While I find this disgusting, let us not forget that one of the most popular teen novels was Twilight, where a 100-plus-year-old vampire lusted after a 16-year-old girl who wanted to die for said vampire. But Twilight is yet another rabbit hole that I just don't have the energy to go down right now. So I dare say that this has been with us longer than we like to think about. Or maybe we don't think about it at all. Maybe you should write your senator about legislating something to deal with this kind of shit. There are plenty nations in Europe that have outlawed this, I'm fairly sure. And while there will inevitably be some people that are out here like, it's just a drawing, bro. All I have to say to that is it's just a prison sentence, bro. Deal with it. Consequences have actions. I'd really like to see this legislated, but I guess that's a rabbit hole for another day. 10,000-year-old dragon lollies have been outlawed in other territories of the world, but for some reason, every time this finds its way to the Supreme Court, it gets shot down. What's wrong, America? I believe in freedom of speech, but do we not need to draw the line somewhere? There are times that it's not just a drawing, bro. There are times that this can stoke up the fires of horrible illicit lust. This type of stuff honestly really turns my stomach to think about it for too long. So yeah, we have to move on. And we will move on with summoning succubi. Oh boy. Oh boy.
Oh boy, my favorite seat.
Just pretend this is a dream.
I won't pretend that summoning a sex demon is on the same level as dragon lollies, but it is at least on par with the same level of creepiness. And yes, one of the most hilarious displays of desperation ever seen on 4chan is the summoning a succubus threads that would appear on X, also known as the paranormal board. You might have heard of the paranormal board. It's where SCP was born, which, yeah, that's its own fucking can of worms. Again, another rabbit hole we might go down another day. These succubi threads would often detail how to summon a succubus to suck your stinky virgin incel pee-pee. Ugh. Now this ties back into the mysticism from a few tiers ago, but it does go much deeper. More entertaining were the assertions that such witchcraft actually worked, described in varying detail, some asserting that a succubus visited them in their dreams, and others outright stating to have felt a very erotic, unseen presence that made them coom in their pants. Yeah, I'm sure. When your dick has been neglected by everything for this long, even a pair of basketball shorts can make some magical things happen. Now, these posts are definitely 100% a clear sign of copium addiction, and yes, they are a great source of internet cringe. I'm gonna go ahead and state right now that there are probably also some legbeards out there that are trying to summon incubi to come and lick their dirty clam that smells like a fucking baby's coffin, but it's not chronicled publicly online. This is something they do in the privacy of their own homes, and honestly, it should be kept that way, if you choose to do it. And finally, we've got troll accounts. Incels love to LARP. It's like escapism, but in real life. And troll accounts are a great way for the bearded LARPers to spread their shit all over the internet. Be it a neckbeard using 40 shell accounts to harass their least favorite e-girl, or a single account dedicated to racist or sexist hot takes. Yeah, these are definitely a staple of being terminally online. There are countless stories of edgy incels using VPNs and shell accounts to just go and shit up Discords and Telegrams and Twitter feeds and Reddit threads. And while it is fascinating to watch, it does truly showcase the horrifying obsession that an incel, neckbeard, or nice guy's mind can hold. Some of my favorite posts are people getting caught out, cross-posting on their same account, replying to their own tweet when they forgot to switch accounts and things like that. Now, I will go ahead and admit right now that I used to hold a fair amount of shell accounts back when AIM was a thing, but that's only so I could, knock people offline by spamming them with direct link requests and stuff like that. That was the fun use of shell accounts. But yes, pretending to be someone that you're not, that's just the worst. This is one of the reasons that I can scarcely ever believe anything that is read online, because yes, there are neckbeards terminally online and trolling for the rest of forever. Finally, we're done with tier 6, and yes, it got heavy, but it will only get even heavier in tier 7, So if you're not already buckled in, buckle in again. Double buckle yourself because it is coming right now. And yes, Tier 7 is Mama's Basement. All your job prospects are gone due to your inability to stop talking about being an incel filled with rage and smelling like a manure farm. Either that, or you failed out of school because you just couldn't stop telling off the faboids. Regardless of how you got here, you are now living in your mother's basement. Nothing exists for you beyond the computer. Reality is a lie, and you took the red pill. Unfortunately, that was a red pill full of mercury, and you are becoming as mad as a fucking hatter. Many who reach this tier will never escape, which in and of itself is absolutely terrifying. Few of these, though, will reach the absolute lowest depths and become the unforgivable. While we are in the depths, while it is absolutely sad, I do believe in your ability to turn it around. It is going to be difficult, though. And we start out Tier 7 with Coom Jars. Oh boy. Sort of like a tribute picture, but much, much worse. Calling back to the My Little Pony topic in the fandom tier, Coom Jars started on 4chan with a male fan of that show. He decided that it would be, quite funny to put a Rainbow Dash figurine in a large jar, which he deposited his bodily fluid into, posting updates every day of its progress. This is actually an evolution of another famous 4chan post that involved similar behavior that didn't feature a figurine, but it did feature an armada of Mountain Dew 2-liter bottles. Except those 2-liter bottles weren't filled with Mountain Dew. In modern day, this odd behavior has transferred to figurines of all kind. The most common targets are VTuber figurines, a joke that some VTubers have leaned into, not that they have much choice, I guess, which may unfortunately be reinforcing the stereotype. But yes, many figurines can be found in jars. Oddly enough, there is a man actively documenting his Joe Biden figurine in one such jar. Good luck finding employment, you odd, disgusting secretion collectors. We actually did have this documented in the tale of Bourgeois Beard, I think it was. That's another full saga up on the channel. His chosen figurine for his jar was Catwoman. Was it the Halle Berry or the Nicole Kidman Catwoman? I guess we'll never know. Nor do I really want to know, honestly. Gamergate. Oh, God. You remember? I remember. Gamergate was a controversy that started around 2014. And there was a public outcry against wokeism in video games. This was an era of extreme sexism that was so toxic that even 4chan had to moderate threads pertaining to it. Shocking, right? Now, truly, this topic is rather nuanced, and it spans a history of time lasting like 3 to 4 years. It has an entire cavalcade of characters who we just don't have time to cover in this video. Major voices in the Gamergate movement would be some of the first internet daddies for fucking fatherless incels lurking on the internet. These influencers would soon amass personal armies of dedicated trolls willing to enact their trolling across Twitter and other social media platforms. Many women were targeted when speaking out about sexism in games, and this resulted in a large, protracted war of opinions. And opinions, much like asshole, everybody has one, they all stink. It's just a complete mess, and nobody who was involved in it came out squeaky clean. The spirit of Gamergate is still very alive in controversies like Comicsgate. Even modern video games that go too woke are still targeted to this day with review bombing. You have to ask yourself, is this how you want to spend your life. Why can people not just enjoy things? If you don't like a game, a comic, a movie, you don't have to make disliking it your entire personality. Instead, why don't you create something and offer that unto the world and realize how difficult it is to sit down and fucking make something that everybody can agree with? Read impossible. Nobody's gonna agree. Even this Neckbeard Iceberg, I'm sure there's a bunch of people that are gonna be like, oh, you didn't do it right. Okay, make one. I implore you, instead of shitting on this one or anything that you dislike, make the equivalent. Make it in your own image. Make it how you'd like to see it, and then realize how difficult it is and abandon it halfway through. And I don't know how closely this one is tied into Gamergate, but next item on the iceberg we have is piss jugs. Yeah, you know about this one. Probably should have been a little bit closer to coom jars, but this is the penultimate form of laziness. You can't even get out of your room, walk down the hall to the bathroom. Absolutely pathetic. And yes, another odd collection behavior seen amongst incels, neckbeards, and nice guys is pissing in jugs. Now, if you're an Amazon employee or a trucker, this might be completely normal. Just another cost of doing the business that you do, especially for the Amazon employees. My heart goes out to you. But if you're just sitting in your fucking gaming chair trying to spam the N-word in League of Legends, well, questions must be asked. The most concerning and disturbing trait of piss jugs is that they often go unremoved from the beard's nest, as though they're some sort of ammonia tribute to their own perceived unfuckability. Unless you have a really good reason to be collecting your own piss in bottles and jugs, I really advise you to just walk down the hall to the bathroom if you're able. And if you are unable, then at least remove the piss as soon as possible. I don't understand the logic behind this, but yes, I suppose it does tie into depression and laziness, and that is why it has become such a common trait for neckbeards. And next up after that, we have keyboard warriors. Yes, maybe it should be closer to Gamergate, although it is essentially the other side of the coin regarding internet discourse. This is the stereotypical concern troll, the woke warriors. You know all about them. While racism and sexism are commonly associated with neckbeardery, let us never forget that incels, neckbeards, and nice guys are capable of adapting. The keyboard warrior is almost terminally woke. These are the individuals who argue for communities and present themselves as allies, speaking for communities that they don't even fucking belong to, often incorrectly and with little less than completely surface knowledge. If you see two Twitter users with anime profile pictures arguing, it is almost certainly an argument consisting of a disingenuous big Tau Sigma male and a clout-chasing keyboard warrior, starting every sentence with actually, followed by a dubious source that they found on fucking Reddit. The keyboard warrior is a rarer breed of incel, and can usually be identified by their inability to stop pointing out perceived microaggressions. The kind of person who accuses even the most inclusive spaces of bigotry, all from the comfort of their mother's very own basement. Now, we have seen keyboard warriors before. They wander into the ReddX Discord server. One in particular sticks out in my mind, and he's talking about neckbeard being a racist term for Muslims, and everybody needs to stop what they're doing, and so yeah, we banned him. Luckily, he didn't come back. Luckily, he wasn't one of those internet trolls with 40 accounts. But objectively, it was equal parts sad and hilarious. I'm not sure where I fall on that necessarily, but it was definitely a day that will live in infamy. By the way, check out the ReddX Discord if you feel like it. Discord.gg/ReddX. Yeah! Predatory behavior is the next point on the iceberg, and yeah, it is exactly what it says it is. Many are the memes about mods in Discords or YouTube personalities and Redditors being groomers or sex pests or just generally predatory. Yes, from the chilly confines of their basement, these people definitely do exist. Almost as numerous as the memes are the real stories of beardy individuals involved in said degeneracy on the internet, and a quantity of these stories even involve minors. Jesus help us. The quantity of this number would ideally never be greater than 0, but we don't live in a utopia. This can manifest in the real world as well, but I guess we'll get into all that in Tier 8. As a YouTube personality, I've been pretty open and honest with my life. I'm a wife guy, first and foremost, all right? Don't nobody need to worry about ReddX controversies showing up anytime soon. That's kind of the nice part about Reddit content, honestly, is everybody's just on their grind, doing what they need to do. But the second you get off into vlogging or story time or beauty vlogs or even mukbang stuff, there's just an endless fount of drama. And yes, some of that is predatory, especially the YouTube gamers. God damn. A 30-year-old playing Minecraft for my kids to watch? No, I'm not playing with any of that shit. Blocked, banned, do not show me this content ever again. Sort of closely related to the vlogs and mukbang channels, I guess, is emotional manipulation. Yes, quite in tandem with all predatory behavior is emotional manipulation. It is not uncommon to see such tactics used by incels, neckbeards, and nice guys in real life. They seem to consider your empathy just a weakness that should be exploited. Such behavior can be seen in direct emotional manipulation, such as using fear to suppress a victim of their advances. They might induce fear by threatening to dox that person or call their work and tell them about the controversial opinions that the victim has online, or perhaps some indirect emotional manipulation, such as suicide baiting behavior. This is a tactic often used to garner emotional support from others and possibly to elicit favors, either of a financial or a sexual nature. The second that you identify and call out an incel, neckbeard, or nice guy for what he is, that is when the emotional manipulation will start. Oh, he was just trying to make friends and nobody ever likes him and he should just go end himself and just save it. I've heard it all before and I'm not participating in your little pity party, all right? You have been identified and summarily ousted. The next point we have listed on the iceberg is anti-diversity beliefs, which is sort of also the inverse of emotional manipulation. This is more along the lines of fact manipulation. You know what I'm saying? People out here pointing to the 15-50 ratio, if you know what I'm talking about. And not even for a second considering why things might be that way. Maybe it is just a bit deeper than surface level. So it's hard to fall into the pit of inceldom without first picking up some really weird racist or sexist beliefs. The pole board of 4chan is a breeding ground for every controversial anti-diversity thought that could possibly exist. Whatever you're thinking about when you hear anti-diversity, yeah, you're probably right. It's always a disgusting thing to witness, and they always seem to have some sort of post from the Daily Mail or some such that backs up their belief. Oh, look at this article from The Sun. No, thank you. I think I will continue existing in the real world with the normalos, okay? If anti-diversity is the way that you set yourself apart and prove that you're not cut from the same cloth, then yes, I will stay as normal as possible. Thank you very much. I love my friends of all different creeds and colors, but this is something that I just cannot abide. Violent threats. Yes, of course, it's here. Incels really just love to send violent threats to all types of people, be it soy boy libtard cucks, or, the latest e-girl to ban them from their OnlyFans chat. These threats often escalate to the bizarre, such as sending dead animals or buying downvote bots in an attempt to own their target's value. When obsession meets uncontrolled incel rage, the sky is really the limit for these lunatics. And that folds us into the very bottom of this iceberg, the thing that I have been most hesitant to talk about. Things are going to get absolutely heavy here. It is the biggest tier, I do think. And I might have to go a little bit gentle because not sure if YouTube is going to slap me for this one or not. But yes, it is tier 8. The violent incels. The unforgivables. There is no returning from these depths. You have gone way too far down the rabbit hole of inceldom, and all that awaits you is the never-ending void. I am not sorry. It is too fucking late for you. Even if you could come back, we wouldn't want you back. And with that said, let's talk about some of these violent incels. And we'll start out with George Sodini. Now, George Sodini is somewhat of the prototype violent incel. Incel culture wasn't really a huge thing at the time of his crimes, but he would later go on to become somewhat of an idealized figure among these rage-filled virgins. On August 4th, 2009, on or about 8:15 p.m., George Sodini entered an LA Fitness in Allegheny County, Pennsylvania. Here, he opened fire with a 9mm Glock into a women's aerobics class, killing 3 and injuring 9. After committing the crime, George Sodini committed toaster bath with a .45 revolver. Research into his past would reveal that he ran a private website where he documented a 9-month period of his life. During this period, he would commentate on perceived slights by women not giving him a second look. At the age of 48, he expressed confusion as to his inability to attract a woman. 2 videos of his also exist during a period of his life in which he was taking a pickup artist class. Comically, he bequeathed his $225,000 estate to his college, who publicly rejected that money, asking that it go to the victims instead. On some level, there's really some poetic irony in that. May the jaws of hell open wide to swallow this human piece of shit whole. Next up, we have Elliot Rodger, known as Le Supreme Gentleman in incel culture. Elliot Rodger was really the first widely known violent incel. We might get into his manifesto one of these days. Elliot Rodger's killing spree would begin on May 23rd, 2014, in his apartment located in East La Vista, California. Here he would stab 3 people, 2 of whom were his roommates. Following this, at about 8:30 p.m., Rodger was seen purchasing a beverage at a local coffee shop. Later, he was seen working on his laptop outside of his apartment complex, at which time he uploaded his 135-page manifesto and a YouTube video at around 9:20 p.m. What follows is a 15-minute flurry of violence. First, he visited a nearby sorority and was denied entrance. At this point, he shot 3 women, 2 outside of the house and 1 inside. After this, he drove down a commercial area and fired into an abandoned coffee house and a deli, killing 1 man. He continued to drive around East La Vista, shooting at random couples and women or striking them with his car. At some point during this period, a sheriff's deputy caught up with Elliot and exchanged fire with him. 3 civilians were struck by Elliot. He then abandoned the shootout with the deputy and began driving at high speed away from them. During this period, he would go on to shoot or run over at least 9 more people before exchanging fire with 3 more police officers near Acorn Park. During the period, Elliot was struck by a single gunshot and again fled the scene in his car while being pursued by police. He would go on to strike 1 cyclist with his car before curbing it and committing Minecraft via gunshot to the head. The violent spree would claim the lives of 6 people and injure 14 others. In the wake of his crimes, people would find the YouTube video and the manifesto in which Elliot detailed his struggle with mental illness, family, and being a virgin. It quickly descends into madness as he declares, war on women and sexually active men. Elliot would go on to become a somewhat cult icon in incel culture and would open the national dialogue about incels, this possibly being the impetus of labeling them as domestic terrorists. May he rest in fucking agony. Next up on the Pathos Parade, we have Chris Harper Mercer, who was a follower of Elliot Rodger. Chris Harper Mercer's manifesto would also express similar views and an admiration for the prolific supreme gentleman. He also expressed frustration with his lack of friends, girlfriends, or a job. Chris's killing spree would take place on a college campus in Roseburg, Oregon, on October 1st, 2015, at around 10:38 a.m. During his attack, he would systematically ask his victims for their religious belief before shooting them, telling them that they would go to heaven. He would go on to kill 9 people and injure 8 more before police responded. At 10:44, Harper Mercer exchanged gunfire with police for 2 minutes before being struck in the right side. 2 minutes later, he would commit unalive by gunshot to the head. No police were harmed in the gunfight, thankfully. Later, it would be discovered that he had written an Elliot Rodger-style manifesto, which he handed to a student before starting his killing spree. Screenshots also allege Chris posted his plan to the 4chan board R9K. The next monster to rear his ugly head from this hive of scum and villainy is William Atchison. Operating under the pseudonym Elliot Rodger Online, William Atchison would go on to kill 2 people at a high school in Aztec, New Mexico. On December 7th, 2017, at 8:03 a.m., he posed as a student before ascending to the 2nd story of the school. He was quickly identified as out of place and chased by a janitor. He ran and sought cover in what appeared to be an empty classroom. The teacher, who heard the janitor's cries of "active shooter," ushered the children into the connected teacher's office and locked the door. William took this as his opportunity and fired through the wall into the office, killing 2 students. After he did this, he did a backflip straight into hell again via a gunshot wound to the head. Later, many of his shell accounts would be discovered. Unsurprisingly, incel rhetoric was abound. But unlike the other violent incels on this list, he also really liked Hitler. His shooting spree lasted only 3 minutes, but the lives lost in that time can never be reclaimed. Another despicable human being that made it onto the iceberg is Alex Manassian. Alex Manassian is an interesting case, mostly because of the public access to the police interviews that were conducted on him. Alex Manassian was a self-identified incel with a lot of rage. On April 23rd, 2018, at around 1:22 a.m., Alex used a rented minivan to go on a vehicular murdering spree throughout Toronto, Canada. 9 of his 11 killed victims were identified as women. 15 others were injured during this period. Alex drove the rented minivan along the sidewalk, targeting women before re-entering traffic and getting stuck on the sidewalk. A nearby police officer responded. Alex Manassian then drew an unidentified dark object from his back pocket, pointing it at the officer. This resulted in a standoff where Alex demanded that the officer kill him via gunshot to the head. After a very tense few minutes, the officer identified the object as a wallet and holstered his pistol. Alex was taken in and interviewed, where a not insignificant part of that conversation focuses on 4chan. During the interview, Manassian would reveal his affinity for the R9K board on 4chan and his frustration with being a so-called manlet. These revelations earned him the nickname Mini Assassin among those who openly mock incels. The judge, at his trial, would determine Alex's wanted notoriety and had him classified as Mr. Doe in all court documents. Still alive and in custody for now, at least until he figures out how to take his own life with just a wallet. What an idiot. Scott Bieri. On November 2nd, 2018, Scott would enter a hot yoga studio in Tallahassee, Florida, using a semi-automatic Glock to kill 2 women and injure 4 other people. Following this, he would disconnect from the server of life via gunshot wound to the head. Big surprise there. In the aftermath, many videos of Scott's were found online where he espoused the normal incel virtues, as abnormal as they are. I guess they're normal to incels. And, of course, he had a paid tribute to Elliot Rodger. Jesus Christ. Burn in hell, you waste of carbon. Next up, we have Brian Isaac Clyde. This is the least successful incel shooter on the list, which, considering incel's level of success, I guess shouldn't be that surprising that at least one of them was an abject failure. He only succeeded in injuring a single individual and then was gunned down by 3 federal agents. His attack began and ended on June 17, 2019 at around 8:40 p.m. It took place near a courthouse in Dallas, Texas. Probably not the best place to have a shooting spree, considering there are armed officers at the courthouse at all times. But I guess incels have never been known for their intellect, despite how they tell themselves otherwise. The man was later found to have been a pro-Confederate, transphobic neo-Nazi following the events. He was also a self-identified incel, and the common theory is that he just wanted to commit suicide by cop. Which is pathetic in and of itself. He didn't even have the balls to take his own life. Yet another complete waste of skin. The final entry that we have on our Violent Incels Iceberg, although I know there probably are some more, we could have gone on forever with this one. We'll bring up Armando Hernandez Jr. On May 20th, 2020, Armando attempted to shoot up a mixed-use district in Glendale, Arizona. He injured 3 people and was arrested. During his time in custody, he revealed that he was a self-identified incel and was hoping to kill at least 10 couples. Thankfully, another one that was put into custody and will probably live a long and torturous life. Congratulations, Armando. You're not an incel any longer. Bubba is gonna make love to you every night. Now, a lot of these incels do express their discontent with women and society at large, but really there's not many people to blame besides themselves. Women 100% keep their head on a swivel. They can sense guys that are even slightly imbalanced, even if they don't know it to their conscious selves, because all it takes is one psychopath to end up dead. There's also the case of not liking your job or where you are in life, and that is all within your own hands. But yes, incels seem to get into this negative feedback loop and endlessly encourage each other to make the wrong decision. I do understand mental illness, family problems, even being a virgin. Being a virgin is a fine thing if you rock it, if you're not feeling insecure about it. I am 100% behind you. Family problems can be dealt with. Mental illness, same thing. Maybe you need some medication. Maybe you need some therapy. But going onto an internet forum and commiserating with people who are like yourself is not the way to fix it. It can help in some instances if you're getting some positive feedback, but that is not what these incel forums do. We've had a gigantic rash of these domestic terrorists, and it doesn't seem to be getting any better, honestly. I hope that by spreading awareness, all the things that I do on the channel, maybe We can reach out, warn people about the direction they're headed in, get them turned around, at least let other people know what's going on, and perhaps they can also lead those people to salvation, as it were. It is an exceedingly difficult situation and not one that is going to be fixed with just a YouTube video, but legitimately I do hope that I've done my part, at least in some type of way. So, closing thoughts regarding this iceberg. All of these concepts definitely do tie together in the end. There is a progression into the deepest and darkest waters of incels, neckbeards, and nice guys, and they definitely all seem to share traits that make them vulnerable to obsession and radicalization. These traits probably span all the way back to childhood, and through quirks of personality, they would become outcasts. During their social isolation, they would find themselves dragged deeper and deeper into the weirder and weirder corners of the internet until they finally find a group that will accept them. In many ways, incels, neckbeards, and nice guys culture is much like a cult, preying on those who feel lost and adrift. It is 100% a self-fulfilling prophecy, as we've seen by many incels who do finally get into a relationship or get laid, and then they are ousted by all of the people whose opinions they value. They are very determined to hold each other down because God knows misery definitely loves company. Now, to be clear, not all neckbeards become nice guys, and not all nice guys become incels, but it does remind me of an old lesson that I learned in grade school. If you see someone with no friends, just offer them a hand. Who knows? You might just stop someone from heading into these deepest, darkest waters and meeting a horrible end, perhaps even taking other people with them. If you guys did enjoy this video, please do not forget to like, comment, and or subscribe. Sharing it around is also like absolutely huge. This is the first time we've done a video of this type, and I'm hoping in a big way that it'll blow up. But I guess time will tell, right? If you're new here to the channel, please take a look around. We got all kinds of neckbeard sagas going on, and you can even identify some of these traits within said sagas. We've got all kinds of plugs, playlists, podcasts down in the description. I'm everywhere. Spotify, iTunes, Teespring. Check it out. We also got social medias, Twitter, Discord, Facebook, and Twitch, where I live streamed the whole reading of this iceberg. And it did go in a couple of different parts, but it turned out really well as far as I'm concerned. So thank you to the Twitch chatters who stuck with me through it. I would also, of course, like to thank my gorgeous, wonderful, beautiful, generous patrons, my channel members. Yes, they are doing the most, keeping us afloat. So as I do every video, I'd like to thank them individually right now. So thank you. First, starting with our channel members. Organic Steve, hey, you double dipping, triple dipping. Look at this guy right here. Jesus Christ, doing the most. Malama Man, Skylar May Amara, the Gypsy Barber, Train Boy, Fire Drake, A Tiny Void, Samantha, Death's Flagship, Bearded Snake, Buy Two, Get One Hand. We've also got the beautiful patrons, like I said, Wired Up, Ian, Jerry, Darth Luscious, Harley Owen, Robert Waits, Camille Sarah, Chase LeBlue, Kraken, Gintu at the Doodles. Yes, she does some of the thumbnails sometimes. Waxail Wolf, Sip, Jerry, Conrad, Ingy, Captain Cloud, Jerry, Hong Kong, Evan, Jerry, Esteban, Farad, Lang Sign, Crusader, Jerry, Organic Steve, Beat with Bag of Mouse from Downtown with Jerry, Beck for Forgiveness, Gio, Silent Revolver, PCP, Fluxer, A Soldier of Industry. I think I did call it that once. The original Jerry, Tick Jerry, Destiny Piper, Jerry Shitsune, 211 Jerry, Deadpool Jerry's, A Very Tired Jerry, A Justin Dargonian Jerry, and Frankenberry, Ain't That a Hiding Bitch, Aspen XO, Accessible Jerry, Aurora Wildheart, Baby Jerry, Bailey Joy, Peter Jerry, Benji and the Jets, Bitch Gremlin, Blip Blue Jerry, Bronze Dragon, Catholic Jerry, Commander J Tank, Confederate Jew, Dennis Dayton, Dr. Lex, Aaron Era, Eastbars, Frozen Number Studios, Fire Drake, Gypsy, Hadrian BR, I'm Slim Jerry, I'm the real Jerry, Inquisitor Jerry, Irish Pirate, Feed Me Hold to Near Bursting with Tendies, Beat at a Trap with Summon Caught the Story, Welcome Aboard, and I don't know what the end of it says, it's too long. Iron Hollow, Irradiated Jam, Pimp named J Chris, JM Coon, Jerry Blacktail, Jerry the Outlaw Trucker, John Hero, John Jerry, Jingleheimer Schmidt, Crew He, Kelly Kraken, Legitimate Girth, Miss Monday, Lord Jerry, Luca was a clever Patreon name, yeah, totally, like and subscribe, Lady Dix, Malama Man, ooh, that double triple dip from everybody, Marble Jerry, got lost on the way to Panda Express, oh snap, let's go get some sugar chicken, Melgar the Destroyer, Metofecta, Needless King 89, Nightmare Jerry, Paragon Soul, Phantom of the Pines, Jerry Kins and Jerry Beth, Queens, Quaaludes and Quagmires, Rose, Jerry Miller, Surrey to the Lolita, Saucy Octopus, Scarlet Kevin, Sergeant Gay Cop, Bring Out the Law, Silo Whip, Stephanie Gooder, Synaptic Groomstick, Burn Tomato, Tapioca Blue, Taylor Fair, the Italian Greyhound Dino, the Little Sue, the Trufusky, Train Boy, trying to find a way to get back to the real world. You probably know what to blow to that balloon, not Stinky Balloon, V3 Prime, Vanguard Angel, Viking Jerry, Wiki Tech, Will Max, Zephyrine Gargoyle, Comrade Mooney, Kira, not another Jerry, but he is though, Naga Viper, Safe Blessing, Third Stuff, Venom Jerry, Wasabi Jerry, Jace Christensen, One Leg Jerry, the Neckbeard Hunter, a normal Jerry. Hi Red, I have the Daily Cringe special with a side of powdered spine, please. please? You gotta bring your own. BYOPS. Admiral T-Tech, Amber Alder, another stupid hipster, Atomic Jerry Zilla, Bartender Keeler, Blueberry and Apple Pie, Broken Spine, Horseradish, Cake Jerry, the original different Jerry, California Jerry, Girl, Chef on 7 Lock, Chicago Panda, Corey Desart, sometimes, Corporal Admiral, Princess Furry Warrior, Woo Jerry, something like that. Crypt Titties, Devon Jerry, Tafter Tuna, Dopamine Day Jerry is Dr. Cody Zawa, Dwarfy Dude, Too Tight to come up with anything, just re-rate the name above me, Jerry. Dwarfy Dude Jerry, Ghost of Alpha, he cannot. Inside you there are two wolves. One is cringe, the other is cringe. You are cringe. Yes, thank you very much. Jerry and Jimmy, roam the streets of Finland, hunt down the Rudo headband. Jeffrey, Gerald of Rivia, Jerry and Tom, Happy New Year, we have the apocalypse. Jerry Springer, the results are in. You are not the neckbeard. Jerry the Sussy Baka, Jerry's mom has got it going on. Jerry Alder Rivera, Jerry Rockstars, Jerry Role-Playing Game, Keaton Tails, Kid Marvelous, Kitsakin, Little Lane Woods, Lucia Lovecraft, Mama Machia, Seedy, maybe next time, Midfit Gimp, Miss Duchess, Not Invisible Angel, Raptor, She's My Jerry Pie, Skymara Ravenswood, Snary, that's Snom Jerry, Snowman, what is best in life? To crush the neckbeards, to put them feet to Jesus, to hear the lamentation of their body pillows, Spoon in the row, Spoopy Scary, Jerry Ton, Techno Dubs, the original Jerry, to Infinite Jerry and beyond, Unkale, Underwater Movies, throws 2 liter Mountain Dew, grow my neckbeard, grow. It's Jerry time, holds ReddX Morpher, Hygiene, it's Jerry time, holds ReddX Morpher, Humility. I would also like to thank my $1 patrons as well, beautiful people that they are. Thank you to the Jerrys and not Jerrys alike. If you can support on the channel, that's huge. I appreciate you so much. But if you can't do it right now, don't sweat it too hard, friends. I just appreciate you coming on through, hanging out with me, and hope that you'll come on back and hang out with me again tomorrow. In order to do so, you need to keep yourself safe out there, wash your hands, but also take some time out and do something that you personally enjoy. Maybe like watching some more ReddX videos. Beep, beep, beep. And of course, always remember, friends, that you are loved. You are worthy. You definitely deserve it. If you need help, do not be scared to ask for it. And I will see you in the next one. So until then, friends, bye-bye.